What if the greatest chapters of human history were never written down, but deliberately hidden? Beneath deserts, oceans, jungles, and mountains, there are places that should not exist. Structures built before civilization was supposed to begin, cities abandoned without war, people who vanished without leaving names behind. We call them mysteries, but that word barely scratches the surface. These are moments where history hesitates, where the evidence is real, but the explanation is missing. Stone pillars older than agriculture. Human species known only through fragments of bone. Entire cities resting quietly beneath the sea, untouched for thousands of years. The more we uncover, the less certain we become. And in that uncertainty, something unsettling emerges. The idea that our understanding of the past is incomplete. Tonight, we step into that quiet space between what we know and what we don't, where ancient stones still ask questions and the earth refuses to give easy answers. There is a certain softness to the world when night settles in, when the pace of the day quiets, and the mind begins to wander into gentler, deeper territories. This section opens with that very feeling, an invitation to step slowly into the dim corridors of ancient time, where the edges between fact and mystery blur in the most comforting way. Archaeology is usually thought of as a discipline of facts, measurements, and careful excavation, but beneath every discovery lies a far vaster realm of questions. It is that space, calm, shadowed, and endlessly intriguing, that this journey seeks to explore. As the narration drifts forward, listeners are encouraged to imagine the earth not as a stable surface beneath their feet, but as a layered archive of forgotten ages. Every grain of soil holds the imprint of someone who once lived, created, feared, celebrated, or dreamed. It's so much of what those people left behind is fragmented, incomplete, or utterly mysterious. Even the greatest civilizations left trails that vanish abruptly, leaving archaeologists with more puzzles than answers. These unknowns are not frightening. They are simply reminders of how much of human history lies beyond the reach of certainty. This calm exploration begins with the acknowledgement that for every artifact carefully cataloged, there are countless more that remain buried, perhaps forever. Entire cities sleep under deserts, mountains, jungles, and seas. Some structures defy explanation, their builders lost to time. Others whisper of languages we may never decipher, rituals we can only imagine, and knowledge that might have been advanced, intuitive, or symbolic in ways we no longer understand. These mysteries exist in a gentle twilight zone between presence and absence, visible, yet concealed, discovered, yet unexplained. But darkness in this context is not the darkness of fear. It is the darkness of deep ocean trenches, of sealed tombs, of caves that have waited tens of thousands of years for light to return. It is the darkness that preserves, cradles, and protects the past until we are ready to reach for it. The documentary uses this contrast, the bright beams of modern archaeology against the soft unknown, to create a sense of continuous wonder. History is a vast landscape of certainty, but mystery is what gives that landscape depth. Listeners are invited to take slow breaths and sink into the rhythm of this idea, that unanswered questions are not failures of knowledge, but gateways into imagination. The unknown has always been a companion to humanity. Ancient people gazed at the stars and wondered who traced patterns in the sky. They touched polished stone and questioned the hands that shaped it. They walked through ruins long before those ruins became history. Mystery threads throughout all eras, linking us to people we will never meet, but somehow still understand. As the narrative continues, we begin to drift over continents. Across the plains of Turkey, stone circles rise from the earth, older than civilization itself. Deep within Siberian mountains, a cave preserves the faint traces of a species of human we barely comprehend. Beneath quiet waves of the Mediterranean, city streets lie frozen in place, as though waiting for footsteps that will never return. These are not merely archaeological sites. They are doorways to forgotten stories, half-opened, inviting and elusive. The human mind instinctively tries to fill in gaps, to imagine who lived in these places, what they believed, how they built, and why they disappeared. Yet the aim here is not to force conclusions, but to gently observe the interplay between what is known and what remains hidden. The documentary encourages a slow immersion, allowing listeners to float between the structured world of evidence and the dreamlike domain of speculation. This blend, half clarity, half shadow, is the signature of the greatest unsolved archaeological mysteries. These mysteries endure not because they are unsolvable, but because they grow deeper the more we uncover. Each new excavation removes a layer of soil, but also reveals new questions. For every tool discovered, there's a purpose we cannot be certain of. For every ancient structure uncovered, there's a reason for its construction that is still clouded. For every skeleton found, there's a life story we can only piece together in fragments. Archaeology is a discipline of careful revelation, but mystery is what gives these revelations meaning. In this calm, contemplative space, the documentary invites listeners to step into the role of both observer and dreamer, to listen not only to the facts, but also to the quiet silences surrounding them. For it is in those silences that history hides its darkest, deepest secrets, not dark in tone, but dark in the way a sealed chamber is dark, full of untouched potential. As the introduction draws to a close, the sense of gentle curiosity deepens. If the Earth is a library, then many of its volumes remain unopened or incomplete. And like a lantern carried through a forgotten hallway, this journey will illuminate one mystery at a time. Each will unfold slowly, not to frighten, but to soothe, to show that even in the deepest unknowns, there is beauty. This section ends by following a single ancient footprint, preserved in dust, leading toward a place older than agriculture, older than cities, older than writing. A place where humanity carved its first great enigma into stone. And with that soft transition, the path leads naturally toward the first mystery, the vanished builders of Göbekli Tepe. There are places in the world where history feels older than time itself, where the stones seem to hum with memories that human understanding can barely reach. Göbekli Tepe is one such place. Perched quietly on a hill in southeastern Turkey, overlooking rolling plains that have watched millennia drift past like soft clouds. This site does not whisper, it echoes. It challenges everything historians once believed about the rise of human civilization, and it does so without offering a single clear answer about the people who built it. In this section, the focus turns to that paradox, a monument so ancient and advanced that it forces us to reconsider the very beginnings of human society. As the narration settles gently, listeners are invited to imagine the landscape as it might have looked 12,000 years ago. There were no cities, no organized agriculture, no pottery, and no written language. Humanity was still moving through the world in small, nomadic groups. Hunter-gatherers spread across vast territories. According to older archaeological assumptions, such groups lacked the time, resources, and societal structure to build anything monumental. And yet, here on this barren hill, they carved towering limestone pillars, arranged them in perfect circles, and decorated them with intricate reliefs of animals and symbols. The mere existence of Göbekli Tepe is a contradiction, a collision between the simplicity we assign to early humans and the complexity they clearly possessed. Each pillar, some weighing more than 10 tons, was carried from quarries hundreds of meters away using methods we still do not fully understand. The effort required, cutting, transporting, lifting, positioning, would have demanded organization on a scale that should not have been possible for people of that era. Yet the evidence stands firm. The stones exist. The circles exist, and the builders remain an enigma. Listeners are guided deeper into the mystery as the light of modern assumptions dims and the shapes of ancient uncertainty grow sharper. The site's immense age, predating Stonehenge by 6,000 years, creates a contrast that feels almost dreamlike. How could a society with no permanent settlements create something so architecturally sophisticated? What inspired them to carve vultures, snakes, wild boars, foxes, and abstract forms in a stone? Were these merely decorations, or did they serve a ritualistic or symbolic purpose that we can no longer interpret? Many researchers believe Göbekli Tepe served as a ceremonial or spiritual center. Some envision it as a place where disparate groups gathered, united by shared beliefs or seasonal rituals. Others see astronomical alignments in the positioning of the circles, suggesting that the builders were not only artists but also early sky watchers, mapping stars long before formal astronomy existed. Yet for every theory, the site offers a contradiction or an alternative interpretation. The mystery deepens precisely because the stones remain silent. They reveal craftsmanship, but conceal motive. The narration moves with fluid calm, exploring the strange decision that defines the site's darkness in the archaeological sense: the deliberate burial of Göbekli Tepe. Thousands of years after its construction, long before recorded history, the entire complex was carefully entombed beneath tones of soil, debris, and rubble. This was not erosion or collapse. It was an intentional act. Someone chose to hide this place, covering the circles so thoroughly that they would remain untouched for ages. Why would a society bury its greatest creation? Was it a ritual farewell, a symbolic closure, an act of protection, or something we cannot yet imagine? It's this intentional burial that casts Göbekli Tepe in the soft shadow of an unsolved puzzle. Unlike ruins left behind by abandonment or disaster, this was a choice, meticulous and precise. The narrative invites listeners to imagine the final day before the burial began. People walking among the pillars, touching the carved animals, remembering the stories and meanings they're now lost. The sun would have set over the hill as workers began to fill the spaces between the pillars with earth, sealing away decades or centuries of ceremony. And then, slowly, Göbekli Tepe disappeared from the world. Archaeologists have uncovered only a fraction of the site, less than 10%, leaving vast portions still underground. With every excavated chamber, new questions emerge. Some circles appear older than others, hinting at different phases of activity. Some carvings resemble constellations. Others depict scenes whose meaning is unclear. The builders had no writing system as far as we know, so nothing was documented in ways we can decode. Their stories, their rituals, their reasons remain buried deeper than the stones themselves. The section continues by contrasting the ancient mystery with the modern investigation. Today, researchers walk among the same stones, mapping and photographing the surfaces, analyzing the cuts and tool marks, and attempting to reconstruct the methods used to move these massive pillars. With modern equipment, the task remains incredibly difficult. For the builders, with their simple stone tools, the feat borders on the unbelievable. And yet, the evidence insists they succeeded. They created something monumental long before humanity was predicted to be capable of such achievements. There is a quiet humility in acknowledging that our ancestors possessed knowledge, coordination, and vision that we have underestimated. Göbekli Tepe gently reminds us that history is not a straight line of progress, but a tapestry woven with brilliance, mystery, loss, and rediscovery. The site does not fit neatly into established timelines, and perhaps that is its greatest contribution. It forces us to rethink not the answers, but the questions. Listeners are brought into a reflective state as they consider the builders themselves, not as faceless prehistoric people, but as individuals. Hands that carved detailed reliefs of animals must have been skilled and steady. Minds that designed circular enclosures with intentionally placed central pillars must have been strategic and thoughtful. Voices once echoed in the chambers. Footsteps once circled the platforms. But where did these people come from, and where did they go? That is the final puzzle Göbekli Tepe leaves behind. For after its burial, the culture responsible for its construction seems to vanish from the archaeological record. No successor sites with the same style have been identified. No skeletons associated with the builders have been found. No village connected to the construction has been discovered. It is as if the people who raised the stones stepped out of the dawn of history, built their vast sanctuary, buried it with their own hands, and faded into silence. This section concludes by allowing that silence to settle. The hilltop, once bustling with ritual and labor, now rests beneath open skies once again. Wind moves gently through the excavated chambers. Dust settles softly on carvings older than writing itself. And as the listener lingers in this space, between what is known and what remains hidden, the narrative prepares to step into another ancient darkness. A cave in Siberia where traces of an entirely different human lineage wait quietly to be decoded. There are places on Earth where time feels unusually thick, where the air itself seems heavy with memories older than anything we can fully comprehend. Deep in the Altai Mountains of Siberia lies such a place, Denisova Cave, a quiet stone chamber that has sheltered countless generations of creatures long before modern humans ever left footprints on its cold floor. In this section, the narration guides listeners gently into that dim, echoing space where one of archaeology's most haunting mysteries resides, the Denisovan people. Their existence was not discovered through grand cities, complex tools, or monumental architecture, but through something far more fragile. A few tiny fragments of bone and a sliver of DNA that reshaped our understanding of the human story. As the journey begins, the listener is asked to imagine the cave not as it exists today, with scientists and equipment moving carefully through its chambers, but as it might have appeared tens of thousands of years ago. Windless, cold, almost breathless, the cave would have been a refuge from the brutal Siberian elements. Shadows would have flickered against its rough stone walls from small fires lit by ancient hands. Those hands, we now know, did not belong solely to Homo sapiens. They belonged to a mysterious lineage of humans who left behind so little and yet changed everything we thought we knew about our origins. The discovery that revealed the Denisovans was almost accidental. In 2008, a small bone fragment, no larger than a coin, was recovered from the cave's deep layers. It appeared unremarkable, offering no visible clues about the individual it once belonged to. But when researchers extracted and analyzed its DNA, they found something extraordinary. It didn't match modern humans, nor did it match Neanderthals. It belonged to a distinct group, previously unknown, that had lived and thrived in Eurasia for hundreds of thousands of years. With that single bone, a hidden branch of the human family tree emerged from the shadows. The narration moves slowly, allowing listeners to absorb the weight of this revelation. The Denisovans left behind so few physical traces that without modern technology, their entire existence might have remained forever lost. In contrast to other ancient humans, we have no clear facial reconstructions, no complete skeletons, no definitive tools directly tied to them. What we do have, however, is something uniquely powerful. Their genetic legacy, preserved not in museums but within the DNA of living people across Asia and Oceania. This contrast, physical absence paired with biological presence, creates one of the most profound mysteries in archaeology. As the story deepens, the atmosphere becomes more intimate, as though walking slowly through the cave itself. Each chamber holds different layers of sediment, each layer containing artifacts and bones spanning tens of thousands of years. From these layers, researchers have uncovered traces of Neanderthals, traces of early modern humans, and traces of Denisovans, all overlapping like ghostly silhouettes of humanity's shared past. Denisova Cave was not simply a shelter. It was a crossroads, a meeting point of species, cultures, and timelines. The presence of these groups in the same place raises questions that remain unsolved. Did they coexist peacefully or compete? Did they exchange knowledge? Did they share tools, rituals, or stories around their fires? What we do know is that Denisovans interbred with both Neanderthals and modern humans, leaving behind genetic footprints still carried today. Some people in Tibet and the Himalayas possess a Denisovan gene that helps them survive in oxygen-poor high altitudes. People in Melanesia carry Denisovan DNA related to immune system strength. These fragments of ancient code hint at a people who were adaptable, diverse, and far-reaching. And yet, their physical remains are virtually non-existent. For such a genetically influential group, the silence of the archaeological record feels almost eerie. The narration contrasts this silence with the fragments we do have: a finger bone, a few teeth, and a piece of skull. The Denisovan teeth are especially striking. They are larger than those of any modern human, suggesting robust physical features we can only imagine. Their tools, found scattered through the cave, show surprising craftsmanship: polished green stone bracelets, delicate pendants, and artifacts made from animal bones that suggest intentional shaping. These intricate objects challenge stereotypes about primitive ancient humans. Instead, they imply a level of intelligence, creativity, and symbolic behavior that rivals or even surpasses what is known from Neanderthals. And yet, the deeper we dig, the more questions emerge. How far did the Denisovans travel? How widely did they spread across Asia? What technologies did they master? What languages did they speak? What beliefs guided them through their world? The cave offers hints, but not clarity. The layers of sediment are like pages of a book written in a script we can read only partially. DNA reveals relationships, but not culture. Tools reveal capability, but not intention. Carved jewelry reveals beauty, but not meaning. The darkness in this mystery is not sinister. It is simply the darkness of absence, the vast space between what we can prove and what we can only dream. The Denisovans lived for hundreds of thousands of years, far longer than modern civilizations have existed, yet we cannot reassemble their story. Their world stretches beyond the edges of archaeological visibility, leaving behind just enough evidence to confirm their existence while keeping their identity hidden. Listeners are invited to imagine the cave at night. The drip of water echoes through the chambers. The remains of ancient fires still stain the stone. Somewhere in that darkness, a Denisovan child once slept, a family once gathered, and a community once thrived. Their footsteps, their laughter, their fears, their daily rituals, all vanished without a trace, erased by time's slow and patient movement. Modern scientists continue to work carefully within the cave, sifting through dust and debris that has settled there since long before recorded history. Each new find, a bone shard, a tool, a bit of charcoal, adds only a small stroke to the canvas, leaving most of the picture blank. Even the DNA studies, powerful as they are, offer only glimpses. We could trace their genes, but not their stories. We can measure their contributions to modern humanity, but not their worldview. We stand at the entrance of the cave with lanterns of knowledge, but the darkness stretches far beyond the reach of our light. As the section approaches its close, the documentary settles into a reflective tone. The Denisovans remind us that history is not a neatly organized timeline, but a vast web of forgotten lives, unexpected connections, and unseen influences. They remind us that humanity is not a single story, but a mosaic of intertwined lineages, some visible, others hidden just beneath the surface of memory. And they remind us that mystery is not merely the absence of answers, but the presence of possibilities. With this quiet understanding, the narrative begins to shift gently toward the next enigma, one not found in caves or mountains, but beneath the shimmering waters of the Aegean Sea. The path leads from the darkness of Denisova Cave to a sunken city whose silent streets tell a very different kind of ancient story: the submerged world of Pavlopetri. There's a particular kind of stillness that only exists beneath the surface of the sea, a quiet, weightless calm where sunlight drifts in pale ribbons and time seems to slow. It is in this dreamlike underwater world that the city of Pavlopetri rests, one of the oldest known submerged settlements on Earth. Unlike ruins lost in deep oceans or swallowed by violent cataclysms, Pavlopetri lies only a few meters below the gentle waves off the coast of southern Greece. Its streets, buildings, courtyards, and walls remain so remarkably intact that many divers describe the experience as walking through a ghost city, frozen in a moment thousands of years old. This section invites listeners into that soft aquatic silence, guiding them through a place where history lingers in suspended animation. Imagine the Aegean Sea thousands of years ago. The coastline was different then, broader and closer to the settlement that thrived along the water's edge. Pavlopetri was a functioning port town during the Bronze Age, bustling with people who traded, fished, crafted pottery, shared meals, and raised families. Their homes were arranged along straight streets, an early form of urban planning that predates classical Greece by centuries. Children might have played near the water, while merchants negotiated over goods brought in from across the Mediterranean. Life unfolded in cycles of sun and sea, far from the world that would eventually forget them. As the narration drifts deeper into this vision, the contrast becomes clear. Above the water, the modern shoreline is rugged and windswept. Below the water, the ancient city lies peaceful and undisturbed. Unlike many archaeological mysteries that arise from missing information, Pavlopetri is almost too clear. We can see the outlines of ruins, storehouses, and plazas with surprising precision. Yet the clarity of the physical layout only heightens the mystery of how this city came to be submerged so completely and yet so gently, as if laid to rest rather than destroyed. Scientists believe that the city sank gradually due to a combination of natural processes. The land likely subsided over time due to shifts in tectonic plates. Rising sea levels after the last ice age added to the encroaching water. Some researchers think earthquakes played a role, altering the coast and weakening the ground beneath the settlement. But none of these theories provide a complete picture. Pavlopetri did not collapse in a violent instant, nor does it show signs of sudden abandonment. The mystery lies in this slow, quiet drowning, so gradual that its inhabitants may not have realized what was happening until it was too late. The narration lingers on this gentle tragedy, allowing listeners to imagine the final years of the town. Perhaps the shoreline crept closer each season, swallowing fields, wells, and pathways. Maybe storms reshaped the coast, leaving families to rebuild again and again until rebuilding no longer made sense. Over generations, the sea would have taken what the people could not keep. Eventually, the town was abandoned, leaving its carefully arranged homes to slip beneath the waves with the patience of time itself. What makes Pavlopetri so mesmerizing is not just its age or its preserved layout, but the impression that it was once a thriving, organized community. The buildings show evidence of two-story structures. The streets align in ways suggesting intentional planning. Pottery found on-site reveals connections to other cultures across the Mediterranean, hinting that Pavlopetri may have been part of broader trade networks. Yet, despite this sophistication, nothing written or recorded about the city survived. No ancient historian mentioned it. No legends or myths preserve its name. The sea took not only the buildings, but the story. Listeners are invited to descend further into this mystery. Swimming through its submerged roads is like drifting through time, each stone whispering of routines and rituals lost. The city feels strangely familiar because, unlike many ancient sites, it is recognizably domestic. There are no towering temples, no colossal statues, no mysterious inscriptions, only the humble foundations of everyday life. And perhaps that is where the deeper mystery lies. Civilizations often leave behind their grand monuments. Pavlopetri left behind the traces of ordinary existence, but none of the identities of the people who live that existence. Archaeologists debate who built the city. Some believe it belonged to the Minoan civilization, known for its artistic brilliance and maritime power. Others suggest a Mycenaean influence, given the style of pottery found. But the truth remains elusive. The city's origins date so far back, around 5,000 years, that it blurs into an era where cultural definitions shift like tides. It may even represent a unique regional culture that never grew large enough to leave its mark elsewhere. The ocean, in its quiet impartiality, preserved the stones but erased the names. The underwater imagery deepens the sense of serenity. Light filters down in golden fragments, brushing over outlines of doorways that once framed scenes of daily life. Fish glide through corridors that once filled with conversation. Sea grasses sway where children once played. Though the city is silent, it is not empty. The sea has adopted it, turning its old pathways into quiet ecosystems. This merging of nature and ancient architecture creates a soft, meditative harmony that fits perfectly into the sleep-friendly atmosphere of the documentary. The narrative explores the contrast between the clarity of Pavlopetri's layout and the darkness of its history. We know where people lived, but not who they were. We know how their city was built, but not why it was abandoned. We know the sea claimed it slowly, yet the emotional story behind that retreat remains invisible. This balance, light shining on the stones, darkness surrounding the human story, is what gives Pavlopetri its haunting beauty. In the 20th century, when the site was rediscovered and mapped, researchers were astonished by how well preserved it was. Modern technology has since allowed for digital reconstruction, revealing entire neighborhoods with extraordinary precision. These reconstructions show that Pavlopetri may have been more vibrant and complex than previously imagined. Yet even with this enhanced view, the essential questions persist. What did the people believe? What gods or spirits did they honor? What stories did they tell their children as the waves grew closer year after year? As the section nears its conclusion, the listeners are invited to linger in that underwater stillness one more time. The submerged city feels like a memory the earth tried to hold on to but could not keep above the surface. It is neither destroyed nor fully preserved, caught in a delicate balance between life and loss. Pavlopetri stands as a reminder that entire worlds can disappear without leaving behind tragedy or grandeur, simply by being quiet, ordinary, and forgotten by the shifting shoreline. This mystery flows seamlessly into the next, for while Pavlopetri lies beneath the sea, another ancient puzzle stretches across the sands of a distant desert. Vast symbols carved into the earth, visible only from the sky, waiting patiently for someone to understand them. With this gentle transition, the journey moves toward the Nazca lines and the enigmatic language of the desert. There is a particular magic in vast open landscapes, the kind where the horizon stretches endlessly, where silence settles into every grain of sand, and where the earth feels like a canvas waiting to be read. In the southern deserts of Peru, this canvas holds one of humanity's most baffling mysteries, the Nazca lines. These enormous geoglyphs, carved into the desert floor more than 1,000 years ago, stretch across miles of arid land. Some form perfectly straight lines that run for kilometers. Others depict enormous animals, plants, spirals, and shapes so large that their full form can only be grasped from high above. This section gently guides the listener into the quiet desert wind, the brilliant sun overhead, and the profound sense of wonder these ancient designs evoke. Imagine standing on that pale, dusty earth. At ground level, the lines appear simple, shallow grooves that barely differ in color from the rest of the desert. If you were to walk along them, you might feel as though you were following a faint path carved by nature itself. But from above, everything changes. From a bird's-eye view, a giant hummingbird stretches its wings with perfect geometric precision. A spider, tens of meters long, unfurls its delicate legs. A monkey curls its spiral tail toward the sky. These immense figures, etched so cleanly into the desert floor, demand attention not only because of their size, but because of the delicate balance of clarity and mystery they embody. As the narration deepens, listeners are asked to imagine the ancient Nazca people who created these lines. They lived in one of the driest regions in the world, an unforgiving landscape where surviving required ingenuity cooperation, and a deep understanding of nature's rhythms. And yet, instead of building towering monuments or massive temples, they turned the earth itself into their canvas. They carved into the top layer of dark desert stones, revealing the lighter sand beneath to create lines that have remained intact for centuries. The contrast, dark stone above, pale ground below, forms images so precise that their proportions rival modern engineering. The mystery begins with a simple question: why? What inspired the Nazca people to design shapes visible only from the air when they had no known way to view them from such heights? This question has puzzled archaeologists, historians, pilots, and dreamers alike for decades. Theories bloom like desert flowers after a rare rainfall, each offering a different perspective, yet none fully explaining the enigma. One of the most widely discussed theories suggests that the lines had religious or ceremonial significance. Perhaps they were offerings to the sky gods, symbols intended to be seen by the deities who observed humanity from above. The desert's vast emptiness would have provided a perfect spiritual stage, an untouched canvas reflecting devotion, hope, and cosmic connection. Another theory posits that the lines served astronomical purposes. Some researchers believe that certain lines align with solstice points or important celestial events. If this is true, the geoglyphs may have functioned as a massive calendar, guiding agricultural and ceremonial cycles. The desert's clear skies and unobstructed horizons would have made it an ideal place to observe the movement of stars, planets, and the sun. Yet other theories point toward more practical uses. Some scholars argue that the lines may have been pathways for ritual procession, ancient pilgrims walking along specific routes during sacred ceremonies. From the ground, many of the lines do resemble trails. The shapes could represent spiritual guardians, animals believed to protect water sources, fertility, or life itself in a region where water was precious and fragile. Still, none of these ideas fully capture the complexity of the lines. And that is where the darkness of this mystery emerges. Not a darkness of malice, but of hidden meaning. The Nazca lines occupy a strange space between what can be studied and what can never be fully understood. They are visible, clear, and physical, yet their purpose remains invisible, elusive, and symbolic. The narration explores the contrast between perspective and perception. On the ground, the lines seem ordinary. From above, they become extraordinary. This mirrors the experience of many ancient mysteries. What seems simple often hides depth, and what appears strange may have been entirely logical to the people who created it. The Nazca may not have needed to see the shapes from above. Perhaps the act of making them held the meaning, or perhaps they viewed the world differently altogether. Listeners are encouraged to imagine the creation process itself. Hundreds of people may have worked together, walking across the desert in organized rows, removing stones methodically to reveal the lighter soil beneath. They had no aerial view to guide them, yet their shapes are remarkably precise. Did they use cords and stakes to form perfect lines? Did they draw the outlines first? Did they rely on ritual leaders who visualized the designs in their minds? The process feels almost meditative, an ancient cooperation carried out under the relentless sun, guided by intention and belief. As the section moves forward, the desert becomes a character of its own. The dryness of the region, which receives almost no rainfall, has preserved the lines for centuries. Wind rarely disturbs the stones. The sun bleaches the surface evenly. The desert, in its harshness, becomes a guardian of these delicate marks. The landscape itself helps explain why the lines remain so clear even after a millennium has passed. But this preservation raises another layer of mystery. What secrets lie beneath the untouched sands surrounding the known lines? With modern technology revealing more geoglyphs every year, some too faint to see with the naked eye, it becomes clear that the Nazca lines may represent only a portion of what once existed. Entire stories, symbols, and paths may still sleep beneath the desert's surface, waiting for discovery, or perhaps waiting to remain hidden. Listeners are guided into the emotional resonance of the lines. There is something deeply human about carving meaning into the earth, about leaving messages for those who come after. And yet the Nazca lines resist our interpretations. They offer shapes, clear, defined, meticulously crafted, but no explanations. Their silence becomes part of their beauty. The desert's winds brush over them softly, as though preserving the mystery with every passing moment. The section gradually shifts to the idea of perspective, that mysteries often depend on where we stand. From the desert floor, the Nazca lines are invisible puzzles. From the sky, they become statements, monumental, confident, and enigmatic. They remind us that ancient people may have had ways of seeing the world that differed entirely from ours. The modern need for explanation may itself be a barrier to understanding. As the narrative approaches its close, the desert grows quieter, the heat settles, and the geoglyphs remain etched across the earth like a forgotten language. We may never decipher their true purpose, but their enduring presence invites endless reflection. They are a testament to human creativity, devotion, and the desire to connect with forces larger than oneself. The transition emerges gently. While the Nazca lines spread across a vast desert, another ancient mystery rises in the highlands of Peru, massive stones fitted together with impossible precision. These stones will lead us from the open sands to the rugged Andes, where a different kind of puzzle awaits. The cyclopean marvel of Sacsayhuaman and the lost knowledge buried within its walls. High above the city of Cusco, where the air grows thin and the mountains curl around the horizon like ancient guardians, stands one of the most confounding archaeological wonders in the world, Sacsayhuaman. This immense fortress-like complex, built by the Inca, carries a presence that is felt long before the stones themselves come into view. As travelers climb the winding paths upward, they encounter an energy that blends quiet reverence with an unsettling sense of the unknown. The structure is both a testament to human ingenuity and a puzzle that continues to defy the limits of traditional archaeology. In this section, we step gently into that high-altitude world, letting the soft Andes winds guide us closer to the mystery carved into stone. At first glance, the overwhelming feature of Sacsayhuaman is its massive zigzag wall. These walls are composed of enormous boulders, some weighing over 100 tons, shaped with such precision that even a razor blade cannot slip between the stones. They are not uniform, but irregularly shaped, each stone differing in size, angle, and geometry, and yet they interlock flawlessly. There is no mortar, no binding agent, just stone pressed against stone with a perfection that appears almost impossible. The smoothness of the joints and the complexity of the designs hint at a level of craftsmanship that challenges modern engineering standards. Listeners are invited to imagine walking along these colossal walls. Each stone rises as tall as a person, some far taller, towering like silent giants of another age. Touching the cool surface reveals a subtle polish, the result of deliberate and skilled workmanship. How were these stones transported up steep mountain slopes without wheels? How were they cut so perfectly without iron tools? How did the builders lift and position them with such accuracy? These questions have hovered around Sacsayhuaman for centuries, creating a fertile landscape for speculation, research, and awe. The accepted archaeological explanation credits the masterful engineering and communal labor systems of the Inca. They were renowned for their ability to organize thousands of workers, for their deep knowledge of stone, and for their reverence toward the mountains and the earth. The Incas believed that certain stones possessed life or spirit, huacas, and their architecture reflected a spiritual harmony between human creation and natural form. Yet even acknowledging their brilliance does not erase the uncanny perfection of Sacsayhuaman's walls. The contrast between what is known and what remains elusive fuels the enduring intrigue of this site. One of the most perplexing aspects lies in the variety of stone shapes. Instead of using simple rectangular blocks, the builders crafted multi-angled stones that fit together like three-dimensional jigsaw pieces. Each stone is unique, carved to match the contours of its neighbors with millimetric accuracy. Some blocks have 12 or more angles, each aligning precisely with adjoining stones. This complexity suggests an advanced understanding of geometry, stone expansion, and long-term structural stability. Even after centuries of earthquakes, invasions, and natural erosion, the walls remain solid and unmoved, outlasting many more modern constructions built with far more sophisticated tools. The narration slows here, inviting the listeners to picture ancient stone workers in the thin mountain air. Imagine the rhythmic sound of carving tools, the chanting of workers as they move stones with ropes and levers, the sun casting sharp shadows across the Andes peaks. There is a meditative quality to the labor, a spiritual rhythm woven into each moment. The Incas saw their work not merely as construction, but as communion, a dialogue between humanity and the mountains that watched over them. Yet as we shift toward the darker side of the mystery, we encounter theories that challenge traditional interpretation. Some researchers believe that the technique used to soften or shape the stones might have involved unknown processes, perhaps using plant-based acids or thermal methods to manipulate rock. Others suggest that the Inca inherited part of the structure from an earlier, older civilization, one whose techniques were lost before written history began. These theories remain speculative, but contribute to the layered intrigue surrounding Sacsayhuaman. The fortress becomes not just an Inca masterpiece, but possibly a chapter in an even older human story. More unconventional theories propose that the precision of the stonework hints at knowledge far beyond what archaeology currently attributes to ancient Andean peoples. Some fringe ideas speculate about lost technologies, geological manipulation, or influences from unknown cultures. While these ideas rest outside mainstream scholarship, their existence underscores the sense of wonder that Sacsayhuaman inspires. The fortress is so remarkable that it pushes the imagination into realms where history meets myth, and where fact intertwines with possibility. As listeners walk mentally through the grand plaza inside the walls, they encounter the vast open space where ceremonies and gatherings once took place. The Incas likely used this site for rituals honoring the sun god Inti, the mountains, and the cosmos. From strategic vantage points, one can see Cusco sprawl below, a sacred city designed in the shape of a puma, with Sacsayhuaman positioned as its head. This celestial and terrestrial alignment reminds us that the Inca world was not divided between the physical and the spiritual. Instead, the two existed as a single intertwined reality. Imagine the glow of torches illuminating the stone walls during ancient festivals, the sound of drums echoing across the mountains, and the hushed reverence of thousands gathered beneath the stars. Sacsayhuaman was not merely a military fortification. Though it likely served defensive purposes, it was a sacred space, a ceremonial center, and a symbol of imperial strength and cosmic balance. Its stones hold memories of rituals, prayers, and celebrations long forgotten, echoing softly through time. This section then introduces the question of earthquakes, a natural force that has shaped the Andes for millennia. Cusco has endured numerous devastating quakes, yet the walls of Sacsayhuaman remain largely unmoved. The multi-angled stones, fitted with such precision, allow the structure to absorb seismic vibrations, distributing stress in a way that modern engineers admire. It is as if the builders understood the earth not as an obstacle, but as a living, shifting force, and they designed their architecture to breathe with it. As this portion of the narrative continues, listeners are invited to imagine what the site must have looked like in its complete form. The ruins seen today are only a fraction of the original complex. After the Spanish conquest, many stones were taken to build colonial structures in Cusco. What remains is the skeleton of a once mighty architectural masterpiece. Yet even this fragment overwhelms the senses. If the ruins are awe-inspiring, one can only imagine the grandeur of the full complex before its dismantling. This reflection gently transitions into an emotional contemplation. How much of ancient knowledge has been lost? What techniques, methods, and beliefs disappeared in the upheavals of conquest, natural disaster, and time itself. Sacsayhuaman becomes a symbol of both resilience and fragility, surviving centuries, yet incomplete, whispering secrets that cannot be fully reconstructed. As the section draws to a quiet close, the Andes winds grow cooler, and the fortress stands silhouetted against the fading light. The stones, silent yet powerful, evoke a sense of timeless guardianship. They are remnants of genius, fragments of mystery, and invitations to wonder. And just as the last lines are carved into the listener's imagination, the narrative prepares to move onward, away from the high mountain fortresses and deeper into another enigma of ancient civilizations. From the towering stones of Sacsayhuaman, we journey next to the mysterious underwater world of Yonaguni, where submerged structures blur the line between natural formation and forgotten civilization, inviting us to dive into the depths of the unknown. Far to the southwest of Japan, where the Pacific waters shift from deep sapphire to soft emerald and the currents move with a rhythm older than memory, lies the island of Yonaguni. It is a place shaped by wind, salt, and myth, an island where the boundary between sea and sky blurs into a serene horizon. Yet beneath these calm waters rests one of the most debated archaeological enigmas of the modern world, the Yonaguni Monument. This massive, stepped structure lies submerged just off the island's coast, a formation so geometrically precise that scuba divers often describe it as descending into a forgotten city suspended in time. As the section begins, listeners are invited to slip below the surface, letting the ocean's quiet embrace pull them gently into the submerged mystery. The monument, first discovered by a local diver in 1986, appears at a depth where sunlight still pierces the water, filtering downward in shimmering beams that reveal sharp-edged terraces, flat platforms, and vertical walls. These features evoke the unmistakable impression of man-made architecture, like a sunken ceremonial stage or an ancient fortress sculpted from a single massive block of stone. Divers swimming past its steps often feel momentarily disoriented, as if witnessing a ghost of some prehistoric civilization. The contrast between the peaceful ocean above and the monumental silence below sets the perfect stage for this chapter's mix of wonder and unease. Imagine descending alongside a diver, slowly approaching the structure as each detail comes into focus. The steps are enormous, broad, and level, like those of a pyramid cut with impossibly straight geometry. There are platforms that resemble plazas, smooth walls that rise vertically from the seabed, and what some describe as corridors or passageways. Overhangs project outward with uncanny precision, giving the impression of intentional design. The first reaction is often disbelief. The second is fascination. How could such a formation exist so close to shore, in such good condition, if it were entirely natural? This is where the central debate begins. Natural formation or ancient construction? Some geologists argue that the monument is a product of tectonic uplift, sea level rise, and a natural fracturing of sandstone, which tends to break in rectangular patterns. They point out that rock formations in the region commonly form sharp angles due to geological stress. In their view, the monument is a rare yet natural masterpiece, an example of nature producing architecture-like features that only appear designed. On the other side, a group of researchers, divers, and archaeologists argue that the monument's symmetry and layout are too intentional to be purely natural. They emphasize features that appear carved, such as right-angled steps, flat-cut surfaces, and what seems like tool markings. Some even claim to see remnants of staircases, altars, and the foundations of walls. The arrangement of terraces, they argue, resembles the planned complexity of ancient cultural centers. This theory suggests the monument may belong to a civilization that flourished during the last ice age, when sea levels were far lower and Yonaguni's coastline extended much farther outward. The mystery deepens when one considers the possibility of lost civilizations along ancient shorelines. During the Ice Age, vast stretches of land, now submerged, were habitable. If people live along these coasts, their settlements, monuments, or structures could easily have been swallowed by rising seas thousands of years ago. The Yonaguni Monument could be evidence of such a forgotten chapter, an architectural relic waiting for rediscovery beneath the waves. As listeners float through this underwater world, the narration slows, allowing the soundscape of the sea to settle around them. Fish weave through narrow crevices. Rays glide across open terraces, their shadows merging with the stone beneath. The monument exudes a stillness untouched by time, a quiet that feels heavy with unanswered questions. The ocean preserves the mystery by shielding it from clear certainty, blurring its edges and concealing its origins beneath currents and coral. Adding to the intrigue are nearby discoveries. Unusual stone arrangements on the seafloor, pillar-like fragments, and a series of rectangular trenches that some believe may connect to a broader, submerged complex. If these are indeed man-made, it suggests Yonaguni was not an isolated creation, but part of a larger network of structures now lost beneath the sea. These possibilities create a sense of awe, whether they are real or imagined. They expand the monument's story into something vast and tantalizing. But even if the monument is natural, its mystery remains powerful. Nature itself is capable of forming landscapes that resemble cities, temples, and fortresses. In this sense, Yonaguni becomes a reminder of the blurred lines between human interpretation and the Earth's own creative forces. We project meaning onto shapes, searching for patterns, seeking connection with ancient worlds. The monument becomes a mirror reflecting our curiosity, our hope for discovery, and our desire to understand the past more deeply. The narration gently examines another layer, cultural and mythological parallels. Japanese folklore speaks of the ancient Ryukyuan kingdoms and, even deeper in mythic memory, references a lost land called Mu, a Pacific continent that some legends claim vanished beneath the sea. While modern scholars treat such stories with caution, their presence in cultural memory adds emotional resonance to the Yonaguni debate. Whether coincidence or echo, the existence of these myths makes the underwater structure feel like a link between the physical world and the stories carried forward through generations. Yet despite countless dives, detailed measurements, and passionate debates, no definitive answer has been reached. This uncertainty is precisely what makes the Yonaguni Monument such a compelling mystery. It exists at the boundary between geology and archaeology, science and imagination, known history and forgotten past. Even experts find themselves divided, with interpretations shifting as new data surfaces. It is a reminder that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. Some are meant to remain in a state of suspended wonder, inviting contemplation rather than conclusion. As the section approaches its gentle closing, the imagery returns to the surface. Divers rise slowly, watching the monument fade into a blue haze. The waves regain their calm rhythm, and the island of Yonaguni reappears overhead, a quiet piece of land unaware of the enigma resting just below. The transition is peaceful, yet filled with quiet anticipation. For while the monument lies underwater, other mysteries are carved into mountain walls, hidden in canyons, or buried in remote deserts. And as the surface of the water breaks and sunlight returns, the journey leads us onward. From this submerged puzzle, we travel next to a place shaped by shadows and echoes, a haunting city carved directly into a cliff face. With this ascent, the narrative prepares to guide us toward the next great enigma, the rock-hewn, rose-red ghost city of Petra and the forgotten kingdom that once brought it to life. Nestled deep within the sandstone canyons of southern Jordan, hidden behind narrow passageways carved by time and wind, lies Petra, the ancient rose-red city, whose walls glow with shifting hues of pink, crimson, and gold. Approaching it feels like entering a dream etched into stone. The journey begins through a long, winding gorge where towering cliffs rise on both sides, forming a natural corridor of shadow and light. Each step feels like moving back through time, the world growing quieter as the walls close in. The air becomes cooler, the colors richer. Then, almost without warning, the canyon opens, and the magnificent facade of Al-Khazna, the treasury, appears like a vision sculpted by hands both human and divine. This section immerses listeners in the gentle awe that Petra inspires. More than 2,000 years old, the city was not built in the usual sense. It was carved directly into the mountains. Structures were chiseled from top to bottom with striking precision. Pillars, pediments, statues, and entire temples emerging from living rock. The Nabateans, the people who created Petra, left behind architecture that seems to defy the tools and methods believed to be available to them. As the treasury's elegant columns rise before the traveler's eyes, the contrast between what we know of ancient craftsmanship and the grandeur that stands silently before us immediately takes hold. The Nabateans themselves remain a mystery. They were skilled traders, masterful desert navigators, and remarkably innovative engineers. Their trade routes stretched across Arabia, linking the Mediterranean with the vast trade networks of the East. Yet many aspects of their culture, belief systems, and day-to-day life remain faint, preserved only in fragments. Petra, therefore, becomes a monumental puzzle, a city that reveals incredible skill but conceals the full identity of its creators. As light shifts across the carved stone, shadows reveal details of craftsmanship that evoke more questions than answers. Listeners are guided further through Petra's labyrinth of carved monuments. Beyond the treasury lies an entire city, tombs adorned with intricate patterns, temples standing atop high platforms, and long colonnaded streets winding through the valley floor. The scale is overwhelming, as though the cliffs themselves were transformed into an architectural manuscript. Each structure carries its own enigma. Some appear to blend architectural styles, Greek, Egyptian, Assyrian, suggesting the Nabateans absorbed influences from travelers and merchants. Yet the way they integrated these elements into the stone remains uniquely theirs, an artistic language whose meaning has been partly erased by the passing centuries. As the narrative slows, listeners are invited to imagine the process behind these monumental works. How did the Nabateans begin carving structures hundreds of feet tall directly into vertical cliffs? How did they achieve such symmetry and detail without modern scaffolding or power tools? Archaeologists believe they started from the top and worked downward, but this explanation, while practical, still leaves room for wonder. The sheer coordination, labor, and planning required for such a technique demonstrate a level of sophistication that challenges our assumptions about ancient desert civilizations. Yet beyond the architecture lies an even deeper mystery: Petra's advanced water systems. In a land with almost no rainfall, the Nabateans developed intricate channels, cisterns, and dams that captured and stored precious water with astonishing efficiency. They carved conduits along canyon walls, designed hidden reservoirs, and controlled flash floods that could otherwise devastate the city. This mastery over water allowed Petra to thrive as a green oasis in the middle of one of the world's harshest deserts. Even today, researchers marvel at the engineering finesse of these systems, an achievement so precise that parts of it still function after thousands of years. The contrast between Petra's harsh desert surroundings and its once lush heart forms a key theme. While the outside world was barren and unforgiving, the Nabateans used knowledge, creativity, and determination to carve beauty and life into unyielding stone. It is this interplay between environment and ingenuity that makes Petra so compelling, a reminder that even in the harshest landscapes, human brilliance can bloom. As the section deepens, the tone shifts toward the enigmatic atmosphere that permeates the ancient city. Petra has long been associated with legends and ghost stories. Some believed it to be a treasure-filled stronghold guarded by spirits. Others whispered of curses protecting the tombs. Tales told by early explorers described strange sounds echoing through the canyons at night, voices carried by the wind that seemed too deliberate to be simple breeze. Whether born from imagination or the acoustics of narrow rock passages, these stories amplify Petra's aura of mystery. The treasury itself, despite its beauty, may never have been used as a treasury at all. Its purpose remains uncertain, possibly a royal tomb, a temple, or something entirely unknown. Archaeologists debate the identity of the figures carved into its facade and the symbolic meaning behind its intricate details. The absence of written records leaves interpretation open, and this uncertainty invites endless speculation. Petra's silence protects its secrets even as its grandeur displays them openly. Listeners then follow the path upward, climbing the long series of ancient steps leading to the monastery, a colossal structure even larger than the treasury. Carved high into the mountain, it stands as a monumental testament to Nabatean devotion and architectural ambition. Standing before it, one feels dwarfed by the sheer scale of its entryway and the deep shadows that gather beneath its massive stone crown. Like the treasury, its true purpose remains debated. The absence of inscriptions or artifacts means that even these great monuments offer only hints at the civilization that carved them. As twilight settles over Petra, the stone's colors begin to shift, from rose to deep purple, from gold to soft gray. The entire city changes character, taking on a quiet, almost sacred quality. The wind whispers through canyon passages, and the silence becomes enveloping. In this moment, the ancient carvings seem alive, their facades glowing faintly in the dimming light, as though holding memories that cannot fully be voiced. The section explores how Petra's decline adds another layer of mystery. The city was abandoned over time, possibly due to changes in trade routes, earthquakes, or shifts in climate. But the exact reasons remain uncertain. How could a thriving desert metropolis, once bustling with life and culture, slowly fade into obscurity? What events pushed the Nabateans away, leaving behind a city carved with such dedication and artistry? Petra's disappearance from history feels almost as mysterious as its creation. The narration encourages listeners to reflect on the city's dual identity, half revealed, half concealed. Petra stands open to the sky, its vast facades impossible to miss, yet its inner meaning remains deeply hidden. Every structure invites interpretation, but offers no definitive answer. Every carving seems symbolic, but refuses to explain itself. The city is both known and unknowable. As the section gently approaches its conclusion, the imagery shifts once more to the quiet canyon walls and the echoing footsteps of travelers long gone. Petra is a masterpiece of light and shadow, history and myth, knowledge and uncertainty. Its beauty is undeniable, yet its story remains fractured, leaving enough room for imagination to wander freely. The silence of the desert night settles softly over the city, sealing its secrets for another day. The transition prepares listeners for the next journey, one that moves from carved stone cities to a different kind of ancient enigma. From Petra's rose-red cliffs, the narrative will travel toward another mystery, one rooted not in sandstone, but in megaliths aligned with the sky. And with that gentle shift, we move from the desert's carved wonders to the astronomical riddles of Stonehenge and the ancient architects who built with stars as their guide. On the wide, open plains of Salisbury in southern England, where the wind glides quietly across rolling grasslands and the sky stretches out in an endless pale blue arc, stands Stonehenge, one of the most iconic and perplexing archaeological mysteries ever known. Approaching it feels like entering a realm where time stutters, where the ancient and the modern overlap in a strange harmony. The towering stones rise out of the earth like solemn sentinels, weathered by countless centuries but still steady, still purposeful. As the section begins, listeners are invited to step onto this sacred plane, feeling the gentle hush of the landscape that has guarded Stonehenge for over 4,000 years. The monument itself is deceptively simple at first glance. Massive upright stones arranged in circles and horseshoe shapes, some capped with horizontal lintels that create a unique architectural rhythm. But the closer one looks, the more questions emerge. The stones are enormous, the sarcens weighing up to 25 tons each, yet they were transported from miles away without the use of wheels or machinery. Even more baffling are the smaller bluestones, which originated in the Preseli Hills of Wales, nearly 150 miles distant. That ancient people could move such massive stones across valleys, rivers, and rugged terrain remains one of the most astonishing feats of prehistoric engineering. Listeners are encouraged to imagine the scene thousands of years ago. Groups of people hauling stones on wooden sledges, chanting in unison, pulling ropes that cut into the ground, their breath forming clouds in the cool morning air. The journey would have taken months, perhaps years. The determination required for such an endeavor suggests that Stonehenge had a purpose far beyond mere architecture. It was a symbol, a statement, a connection to something sacred. But what exactly did it represent? As the narrative deepens, the mystery shifts towards Stonehenge's alignment with celestial events. The stones are positioned with incredible precision to mark the solstices, the longest and shortest days of the year. At sunrise on the summer solstice, the sun aligns perfectly with the heel stone, casting its first light directly into the heart of the monument. At the winter solstice, the sunset aligns just as beautifully, illuminating the stones in reverse. This intentional alignment suggests that Stonehenge functioned as an ancient astronomical observatory, a monumental calendar built to track the heavens. But while this theory explains part of the puzzle, it does not reveal the entire truth. If Stonehenge were merely a solar calendar, why the need for such massive stones? Why the complexity of multiple rings and structural phases? What rituals took place here under the shifting light of the solstices? The monument's purpose remains suspended between the practical and the spiritual, between what can be proven and what must be imagined. Archaeologists have uncovered tantalizing clues around the site. Burials found nearby contain individuals of high status, suggesting Stonehenge may have held funerary significance. Some remains bear signs of long journeys, indicating that people from across the British Isles, and perhaps beyond, traveled here, possibly for healing, pilgrimage, or ceremony. Chemical analysis of bones reveals traces of illness and injury, leading some researchers to believe Stonehenge may have been a place of healing, where individuals sought the restorative power of sacred stones. Yet even these discoveries leave room for doubt. Was Stonehenge a temple, a tomb, a ceremonial gathering place, a political center for tribal alliances? The monument defies a single explanation, its meaning seemingly shifting like the light that plays across its stones throughout the day. Its design evolved over centuries, with new stones added, removed, or rearranged by successive generations. Each group may have imbued the site with different beliefs and purposes, making Stonehenge a layered tapestry of ancient intentions. Listeners are guided into the emotional ambience of the site, imagining the quiet morning mist hovering over the grass, the silhouettes of stones emerging slowly as the sun rises. The plain is vast and open, amplifying the sense of isolation and grandeur. Standing among the stones evokes a feeling that is both grounding and otherworldly, a strange awareness of deep time, of human hands shaping sacred landscapes long before modern tools, electricity, or written language. The narrative explores another layer of mystery, the acoustic properties of the stones. Researchers have discovered that some of the bluestones produce resonant tones when struck. This has led to speculation that Stonehenge might have had auditory significance, a prehistoric soundscape where music, chants, or rituals resonated through the rings of stone. Whether intentional or coincidental, the possibility that sound played a role adds yet another dimension to the monument's enigmatic design. As the section continues, the contrasting elements of Stonehenge become increasingly evident. It is both grounded and celestial, both material and symbolic. It is a physical structure made of stone, yet its purpose lies in intangible realms: ritual, astronomy, healing, death, and the mysterious relationship between humans and the cosmos. This interplay between the known and the unknown fuels endless fascination. The mention of nearby discoveries widens the mystery further. A short distance from Stonehenge lies Decoding Walls, a vast ancient settlement believed to have housed the builders or participants of Stonehenge's rituals. Excavations reveal feasting pits, houses, and ceremonial avenues leading toward the monument. The sheer scale of Decoding Walls suggests Stonehenge was part of a much larger ritual landscape, perhaps representing the realm of the living, while Stonehenge itself symbolized the realm of the dead or the ancestors. The two sites may have been connected by processions, ceremonies, and seasonal gatherings that united distant communities in shared beliefs. Yet despite all archaeological advancements, the heart of Stonehenge's mystery remains intact. Every answer question opens new ones. Every discovery reveals another layer of complexity. The monument stands as a reminder that ancient people understood the world in ways we have yet to fully grasp. The precision of the alignment, the massive labor required, and the emotional resonance of the structure all point to a worldview deeply connected to nature, cycles, and cosmic forces. As the section slows into its closing, the wind passes softly across the plains again. The stones cast long shadows as the sun begins to dip toward the horizon. In the fading light, Stonehenge appears not as a ruin, but as a timeless guardian, an ancient observatory through which countless generations have watched the skies, celebrated the cycles of life, and contemplated their place in the universe. The narrative transitions gently. From the open plains of England and their celestial stone circles, the journey now turns toward a far more isolated location, an island in the middle of the vast Pacific Ocean, where another mysterious monument rises from the earth. Just as Stonehenge stands as a testament to ancient astronomical understanding, the next site holds the secrets of craftsmanship, collapse, and colossal stone figures staring silently out to sea. And with that shift, we move onward to the next great puzzle, the Moai of Easter Island and the enigmatic society that carved its monumental stone guardians. Far out in the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles from any mainland, surrounded by endless blue, lies a lonely volcanic island known as Rapa Nui or Easter Island. Its isolation is so profound that early European explorers described it as a speck of land lost in an ocean larger than imagination. Yet this remote island holds one of the greatest archaeological mysteries on Earth. The Moai, massive stone figures carved centuries ago, standing silently across the landscape. Their long, solemn faces and deep-set eyes gaze toward the horizon as if watching something humanity has long forgotten. As the section begins, listeners are invited to stand on the windswept slopes of Rapa Nui, feeling the ocean breeze carrying secrets from a distant past. The Moai are monumental, some standing over 30 feet tall, weighing as much as 80 tons. They are carved from volcanic tuff, a relatively soft stone, yet the precision of their features reveals an artistry far beyond simplicity. Each statue has its own expression, its own personality. The elongated noses, strong chins, and heavy brows suggest a distinct aesthetic style. The most perplexing detail, however, is how these massive statues were moved from the quarries where they were carved to their final resting places across the island, some placed on towering stone platforms called ahu. This logistical challenge is one of the central mysteries of Easter Island. Listeners are guided into imagining the creation process. Picture ancient craftsmen working in the scorching sun, carving figures into the soft rock of the Reino Raraku quarry. Over 400 moai still lie here, some partially buried, others only half completed. The quarry feels like a frozen moment in time, an ancient workshop abandoned abruptly, tools left metaphorically mid-stroke. Why were so many moai left unfinished? What halted the work? Did a sudden disaster strike the island? Or did the society collapse slowly, leaving their stone guardians incomplete? The narrative turns toward the theories surrounding how the statues were transported. For decades, researchers struggled to understand how the Rapa Nui people, who lacked wheels, large animals, or advanced machinery, moved multi-ton statues across uneven terrain. Some theories suggested they used wooden sledges and rollers made from logs, implying extensive deforestation. Others believe they dragged the statues horizontally using ropes and manpower. But one of the most compelling modern theories suggests that the moai were walked upright using a rocking motion, guided forward by coordinated teams pulling ropes on either side. Experiments have shown this method to be surprisingly plausible, giving new life to ancestral legends that claim the statues walked across the island by themselves. Yet, even with this insight, the mystery remains layered. Moving an 80-ton stone figure upright requires incredible coordination, strength, and planning. How did a small island population develop such an efficient method? Did they have spiritual beliefs that motivated the immense labor? Were the moai symbols of power, protection, or ancestral presence? Each possibility opens new questions rather than closing them. The section gently explores the spiritual dimension of the moai. Many researchers believe the statues represented ancestors, powerful chiefs, leaders, or sacred figures who continued to watch over the living after death. Their placement facing inland rather than toward the sea suggests they were protectors of communities. The ahu platforms beneath them often served as burial sites, indicating a deep connection between the physical statue and the spiritual identity of the deceased. In this interpretation, Rapa Nui transforms from a landscape of stone figures into a spiritual tapestry where the past and present coexisted. But the mystery grows darker as the narrative moves toward the island's dramatic environmental shift. Pollen analysis indicates that Easter Island was once covered by lush forests, including giant palm trees. Over centuries, however, the island became almost completely deforested. Some theories argue that the construction and transportation of the moai required so much wood that the island's trees were cut down faster than they could regenerate. This may have led to soil erosion, crop failure, and societal collapse. Others argue that the destruction was caused partly by invasive species, particularly rats brought by early settlers, which ate palm seeds and prevented regrowth. Regardless of the cause, the result was devastating. The once thriving society of Rapa Nui appears to have undergone a period of conflict and decline. Oral histories speak of tribal warfare, with rival groups toppling each other's moai as acts of dominance or revenge. Many statues found toppled face down likely fell during this turbulent era. This dramatic transformation, from masterful monument builders to a people struggling to survive, adds another layer of sorrow and weight to the moai's silent watch. Yet some researchers challenge the collapse narrative, suggesting that European contact, disease, enslavement, and outside interference played a far larger role in destabilizing Rapa Nui. In this view, the islanders' culture was resilient and adaptable, and the dramatic downfall often attributed solely to the moai building culture may be an oversimplification influenced by colonial-era perspectives. This ongoing debate reveals how even the interpretation of history can be shaped by assumptions, leaving the true story partially obscured. Listeners are then guided to the smaller but equally puzzling moai, known as moai kava kava, thin, skeletal wooden carvings with hauntingly hollow eyes. These figures suggest another dimension to Rapa Nui's spiritual life, one tied to ancestral spirits and protective forces. The contrast between the massive stone moai and these delicate wooden carvings shows the range of artistic expression that once flourished here. It also hints at the complexity of beliefs that shaped the island's rituals and social structure. As the section deepens, attention shifts to the incredible feat of engineering achieved at the ahu platforms. These stone foundations, built with meticulous care, serve not only as bases for the moai, but also as cultural and ceremonial centers. Some are constructed using interlocking stones reminiscent of Inca craftsmanship, while others employ unique architectural methods not seen elsewhere. The alignment of certain ahu with solstices and celestial events suggests that astronomy played a role in Rapa Nui culture. linking this remote island to global patterns of ancient skywatching. The quiet emotional tone settles back in as listeners imagine standing before a row of moai at dawn. The ocean stretches behind them, the waves rolling in with a steady rhythm. The statues appear both solemn and eternal, their expressions unchanged as the morning light slowly paints their faces. There's a profound sense of presence, of being watched by beings carved with devotion and purpose, beings who once held meaning known only to the people who shaped them. The transition begins as the sun sets over Rapa Nui's cliffs. Shadows lengthen across the moai, their silhouettes growing taller and more mysterious. The island becomes a place of echoes of chants, of footsteps, of forgotten ceremonies. The moai stand as silent guardians of a story partially erased, partially preserved in stone. As the final lines of the section settle, the narrative prepares to journey onward. From the remote Pacific island and its monumental watchers, we move toward a hidden desert wonder, a place where messages are carved into cliffs, where animals, hunters, and myths appear frozen in rock. With this gentle shift, the story continues toward the next unsolved marvel, the ancient petroglyphs of the Sahara and the unknown artists who left their visions etched in stone. Across the vast expanse of the Sahara, now a realm of shimmering heat, rolling dunes, and endless silence, lie carvings that whisper of an ancient world utterly unlike the one we see today. These petroglyphs, etched into rock faces across regions such as Tasselite Niger in Algeria and the Enedi Plateau in Chad, speak of a Sahara that was once green, vibrant, and teeming with life. Carved between thousands and even tens of thousands of years ago, they depict scenes that seem almost impossible in the modern desert. Swimmers gliding through water, cattle grazing across open plains, and mysterious humanoid figures adorned with intricate patterns. This section opens by inviting listeners into this stark contrast between the Sahara as it is now and the Sahara as it once was, a contrast that immediately introduces the deeper mystery hidden beneath the sand and stone. As we move slowly through these barren landscapes in our imagination, the petroglyphs begin to mark themselves as gateways. In the stillness of the desert, they stand like fragile memories carved into stone, surviving the erosion of time. One of the most iconic images is the so-called running horned woman, a figure adorned with elaborate body paint and what appears to be ceremonial regalia. Her presence hints at rituals, social orders, and spiritual beliefs from civilizations long since erased. The carvings show that these ancient artists possessed not only skill but vision that makes us wonder who they were, what languages they spoke, and how they understood the world around them. These images become even more mysterious when we observe depictions of enormous, round-headed beings. Some tower over human figures, with featureless faces and exaggerated proportions, creating an eerie, otherworldly vibe. Archaeologists believe they may represent shamans or spirits, beings connected to ancient rituals and dreamlike experiences. But to modern eyes, these figures ignite speculation, some even imagining connections to celestial visitors or symbolic beings from collective mythologies. Whether literal or symbolic, these carvings open a window into the spiritual lives of people who lived during a time when the Sahara was transitioning from lush savanna to the desert we know today. The carvings also reveal a geographic story. Tens of thousands of years ago, the Sahara experienced a period known as the African humid phase, during which monsoon rains shifted northward, transforming the desert into lakes, rivers, and green pastures. Animals such as elephants, giraffes, hippos, and cattle roamed freely across the plains. The petroglyphs depict these creatures with striking accuracy, suggesting that the artists were observers of their natural world, recording it for others or honoring it within spiritual contexts. In a way, these rock carvings serve as historical diaries, visual archives of a world that climate change eventually reclaimed. Yet, the greatest mystery remains the identity of the artists themselves. Who were they? What caused them to choose these specific cliffs and rock shelters as their canvases? Why did their artistic traditions disappear so completely that no direct descendants or written records remain to explain their meaning? Some researchers believe these artists were part of nomadic cultures that moved with the shifting climate, eventually migrating out of the region when water sources dried up. Others suggest that entire societies collapsed as the Sahara slowly transformed. Whatever the cause, the silence that followed their disappearance leaves us with more shadows than answers. Standing beneath these ancient carvings in the modern desert, one feels both closeness and distance. The hands that carved these images once held tools, lived through seasons, loved, worshipped, and dreamed. But their stories, language, and beliefs dissolved with time, leaving only outlines etched into stone. The desert winds sweep past them each day, carrying grains of sand that brush across the images like faint echoes of forgotten voices. The carvings endure, but the people who made them remain lost in deep time. This section gently transitions toward the next mystery by reflecting on the nature of lost civilizations. The Sahara petroglyphs remind us that entire worlds can vanish, slipping beyond memory until only fragments remain. These fragments challenge us to piece together stories with incomplete clues. The carvings act as whispered invitations, urging us to look deeper, to listen more carefully, and to accept that some truths dwell forever just beyond the reach of certainty. And so, as the desert sky fades from molten gold to deep indigo, we follow the trail of ancient disappearance to another place where disappearance itself becomes the mystery. From rock carvings in the Sahara, we move toward the chilling enigma of vanished cities, settlements that rose, thrived, and then dissolved into the earth without explanation. In the next section, we journey to lost civilizations whose ruins still breathe with unanswered questions, inviting us to uncover what time has hidden. Across the world, in jungles, deserts, and mountainsides, lie the remains of cities that once thrived with life, culture, and purpose, only to vanish in ways that defy simple explanation. This section opens with a soft, reflective descent into the heart of these abandoned worlds, where stone foundations crumble quietly beneath creeping vines and shifting sands. Unlike well-documented empires, these vanished settlements seem to have dissolved from history almost overnight, leaving behind ruins without records, artifacts without context, and landscapes haunted by the absence of their former inhabitants. Their disappearance becomes a puzzle, an unsettling reminder that even the most vibrant societies can slip silently into the realm of myth. Consider the mysterious city of Nan Madol, built on a web of artificial islets off the coast of Micronesia. Towering basalt columns, some weighing several tons, were transported and stacked with a precision that challenges our understanding of ancient engineering. The city once served as a ceremonial and political center, yet its origins and the techniques used to construct it remain obscure. Walking through its narrow water channels feels like traversing a ghost city built on ambition and secrecy. Why did its inhabitants abandon it? Did environmental pressures force them to flee? Or did political turmoil unravel the complex system that once sustained the city? In the silence of the ruins, imagination fills the void left by history's missing pages. The narrative then guides listeners to the Cambodian jungles, where the empire of Angkor rose and fell with breathtaking speed. Though not entirely lost, Angkor's sudden decline remains a historical enigma. A city once filled with irrigation canals, bustling markets, and monumental temples such as Angkor, what became swallowed by the jungle in a matter of decades. Archaeologists propose that extreme climate shifts, years of drought followed by catastrophic floods, may have destabilized the sophisticated water system that sustained the city. Others believe internal conflict, disease, or shifting trade routes contributed to its decline. Each theory feels plausible, yet none alone explains the rapid collapse of a civilization so advanced that even modern engineers struggle to grasp the full scale of its hydrological mastery. From Southeast Asia, the journey shifts to the Americas, where the city of Cahokia once stood as a vibrant hub near the Mississippi River. It boasted enormous earth mounds, a complex social structure, and a population that may have rivaled medieval European cities. Yet sometime around the 14th century, Cahokia's inhabitants dispersed, leaving behind no written records and no definitive answers. Environmental factors, such as flooding and resource depletion, may have played a role, but archaeologists also consider the possibility of internal political strife or social fragmentation. The disappearance of Cahokia remains one of North America's greatest mysteries, a reminder that even expansive and organized societies can unravel without a clear trace. Listeners are then gently brought to the ruins of Great Zimbabwe, a stone city in southern Africa known for its massive, mortarless walls and sophisticated architecture. It was once the center of a powerful kingdom that traded gold, ivory, and goods across vast distances. However, the reasons behind its abandonment remain debated. Some point to ecological pressure, others to shifts in trade routes, and still others to political upheaval. The monumental stone structures stand today as silent witnesses to a civilization that thrived, flourished, and then faded into ambiguity. As this section unfolds, a recurring theme emerges: the fragility of human achievements in the face of environmental change, social complexity, and the relentless passage of time. These vanished cities are not merely archaeological sites. They are echoes of human ambition, resilience, and vulnerability. Each ruin carries a ghost of the lives lived there. The marketplaces once buzzing with voices, the temples alive with ritual, the families who built homes and dreams within walls now touched only by wind and rain. The reflective tone deepens as the narrative prepares to transition. These lost civilizations connect directly to a broader mystery: the ways in which human societies respond to forces beyond their control. And this mystery leads seamlessly into the next topic, where the focus shifts from abandoned cities to artifacts that defy cultural, technological, and historical expectations. As we leave behind the empty streets of forgotten worlds, we turn toward objects that challenge our understanding of time itself. Enigmatic relics that suggest ancient people may have possessed knowledge far ahead of their era. Scattered across museums, private collections, and excavation reports are a series of artifacts that seem to whisper of timelines that do not quite fit, technologies that should not have existed, and craftsmanship that appears centuries, sometimes millennia, ahead of its era. These objects, often grouped under the term arts, or out-of-place artifacts, form one of archaeology's most provocative and controversial categories. This section opens by easing listeners into a world where certainties blur, where accepted historical sequences begin to wobble, and where simple objects, made of metal, stone, or clay, hold within them questions that no single theory can fully resolve. Unlike the large-scale mysteries of vanished civilizations or unexplained monuments, these artifacts carry their strangeness on an intimate scale. They sit quietly on pedestals or inside storage boxes, unassuming and patient, challenging us not with size but with meaning. One of the most famous of these artifacts is the Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. At first glance, it looks like a corroded lump of bronze, distorted by centuries underwater. But X-ray imaging revealed a complex system of gears, dials, and inscriptions, an ancient analog computer capable of predicting eclipses, tracking planetary movements, and modeling celestial cycles with astonishing precision. Created in the 2nd century BCE, it contains craftsmanship comparable not to ancient Greek technology, but to 18th century clockmaking. How did such sophistication appear in a world where most engineering tools were still primitive by modern standards? Was this a lone genius creation, or evidence of a lost lineage of advanced mechanical knowledge? The mechanism's existence raises uncomfortable questions about what else antiquity may have achieved before records were lost, destroyed, or forgotten. From the clear waters of the Mediterranean, the narrative shifts toward the perplexing Baghdad battery. These clay jars, containing copper cylinders and iron rods, date back nearly 2,000 years. Some researchers speculate they might have been used to generate small electrical currents, possibly for electroplating or medical treatments. Though this theory remains debated, the design is undeniably striking. Whether or not it functioned as a battery, its structure suggests experimentation with physical properties that ancient cultures are not commonly credited with exploring. If these jars truly harnessed electricity, even in a primitive form, it would mean that early civilizations understood principles far more advanced than historical accounts typically acknowledge. Another artifact that captures the imagination is the Piri Reis map, created by an Ottoman admiral in 1513. The map appears to depict parts of the Americas with surprising accuracy, despite being drawn only 2 decades after Columbus' first voyage and likely based on much older source material. Even more puzzling, some interpretations suggest that the map outlines Antarctica's coastline, ice-free, long before modern science confirmed the continent's existence. While debates continue over the interpretation of these shapes, the map unquestionably demonstrates a level of geographic awareness that challenges the conventional timeline of exploration and cartography. It raises the possibility that earlier civilizations may have sailed further, mapped more thoroughly, and recorded more knowledge than we currently believe. The narrative gently moves to another enigma: the perfectly drilled stone cores from ancient Egypt. Found in archaeological sites near Giza and Saqqara, these stone cores exhibit deep, precise spiral grooves that seem to reflect advanced drilling techniques. Modern engineers who examined them noted that replicating such grooves in hard stone, using only known ancient tools, would be incredibly difficult. The debate centers not on whether the Egyptians were capable artisans, they were, but on how they achieved such mechanical perfection in an era without modern machinery. Did they possess specialized tools now lost to time? Were their methods far more refined than historical records imply? Or are we misinterpreting evidence that aligns with techniques still not fully understood? Listeners are next guided toward the cryptic London hammer, a hammerhead encased in ancient rock, suggesting, at first glance, an impossibly old origin. While the mainstream explanation points toward natural geological processes forming the surrounding matrix long after the hammer itself was forged, the artifact remains a favorite example in OOPR's discussions because it highlights how easily objects can be misinterpreted when removed from proper context. This case serves as a reminder: not all OOPRs point to lost civilizations or advanced technology. Sometimes, they point toward the vast complexity of geological time or the difficulty of analyzing artifacts without complete documentation. Yet even these cautionary tales fuel curiosity, keeping the conversation alive. The section broadens its focus by addressing the deeper cultural and psychological significance of OOP arts. Why do these objects captivate us? Perhaps because they challenge the comforting linear timeline of human progress. The idea that earlier civilizations knew less, invented less, and understood less than we do today. When an artifact seems to break that narrative, even slightly, it creates a ripple effect across our understanding of the past. It suggests missing chapters, eras of creativity, discovery, or knowledge that disappeared long before our time. These artifacts trigger both enchantment and discomfort. They remind us that history is not a fixed sequence of facts, but a living puzzle assembled from fragments, with many pieces still lost or damaged beyond recognition. As the section unfolds, the calm nighttime tone deepens. We imagine these strange objects resting in glass cases under soft museum lighting, their surfaces touched by centuries of uncertainty. Researchers lean over them with magnifying lenses, scanning equipment, and notebooks, trying to decode what ancient hands once crafted with intention. Yet the silence of the artifacts often resists explanation. They hold their secrets with a kind of quiet dignity, offering hints but withholding certainty. This silence is what makes them powerful. In their stillness, they disturb the boundaries of known history. Toward the end, the narrative prepares for a smooth transition. These artifacts, whether misunderstood or truly extraordinary, lead us to a broader mystery: ancient knowledge systems that shaped entire landscapes, not just individual objects. If certain cultures experimented with technology or science beyond our assumptions, then perhaps other mysteries lie encoded not in stone carvings or tools, but in the earth itself. The natural next step is to explore the sacred alignments, geoglyphs, and earthworks that stretch across continents, patterns too large to see from the ground, yet too precise to be accidental. And so, as the section closes, listeners are guided gently toward the next enigmatic chapter: ancient geoglyphs and landscape-scale designs that challenge our understanding of purpose, perspective, and communication across unimaginable distances. Across the Earth's surface, etched into deserts, stretched across plains, and carved into hillsides, lie messages so large that no ancient viewer could have fully seen them from the ground. These are the world's great geoglyphs: immense shapes, animals, lines, and symbols formed by rearranging earth and stone on a colossal scale. This section opens by guiding listeners into the quiet, dreamlike feeling of standing beside one of these massive creations, knowing that the full image exists only from the sky. The mystery flows from that tension between ground-level visibility and sky-level design. Who were these enormous artworks meant for? Human societies? Spirits? Deities? Or something far beyond? The most famous of these geoglyphs are the Nazca lines in Peru. Hundreds of shapes including a hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, and long geometric lines that stretch arrow-straight across the desert. The Nazca people created these figures by removing the dark stones on the desert surface to reveal the lighter earth underneath, using a technique incredibly simple yet astonishingly precise. Some lines run so perfectly straight for kilometers that modern surveyors still marvel at their accuracy. And yet the Nazca themselves had no way of viewing their creations from above. From the ground, many geoglyphs look like little more than shallow paths or patterns. Only from the air do the full images reveal themselves. This contradiction forms one of the deepest mysteries of the ancient world. What was the intended vantage point? Researchers have proposed that the Nazca lines might be ritual pathways, walked during ceremonies dedicated to gods of water and fertility. Others argue the lines could be astronomical markers pointing to solstices or key celestial events. Some theories even suggest they were vast religious offerings to sky deities, messages written across the earth itself, visible only to those looking down from above. As the section unfolds, the tone remains gentle and contemplative, reminding listeners that the Nazca people lived in an environment where rain was rare and survival depended on the capricious balance between earth and sky. In such a world, writing prayers across the desert floor might have felt not only meaningful but necessary. From Peru, the narrative moves softly across continents to the chalk hills of England, where figures like the Uffington white horse gallop across the landscape. This enormous stylized horse, created by carving deep trenches into the hillside and filling them with crushed white chalk, has endured for nearly 3,000 years. Its design is minimal yet powerful, a flowing, abstract shape that feels almost modern in its simplicity. The fact that ancient communities maintained it generation after generation suggests it held deep cultural importance. Yet its exact purpose remains unknown. Was it a tribal emblem, a protective spirit, a boundary marker, or a sacred symbol connected to seasonal rituals? The windswept hills offer no answers, only the silent presence of the horse watching over the landscape as it has for millennia. The exploration continues with the massive geoglyphs in the steppes of Kazakhstan, mysterious geometric patterns made of earth mounds and trenches that remained unknown to the modern world until satellite imagery revealed them. These shapes, spanning hundreds of feet, include crosses, squares, circles, and swastika-like forms. Their creators are still unidentified. The cultures that built them left few traces. Their discovery adds a new layer to the global puzzle. How many other geoglyphs lie hidden beneath forests, fields, and deserts, invisible without the vantage of modern technology? The idea that ancient peoples shaped the earth on such a scale that only 21st century tools could uncover their work deepens the sense of wonder. The section then reflects on the universal theme that links all geoglyphs, a desire to speak beyond the limits of human perception. Whether these earthworks were meant for gods, spirits, ancestors, or celestial beings, they reveal cultures willing to invest extraordinary effort into creating symbols larger than life. The craftsmanship, the vision, and the communal labor required to maintain these designs show how deeply these messages mattered. For nighttime listeners, the story becomes a soft meditation on the human urge to leave a mark, to communicate across distance, time, and perhaps even dimensions of existence we cannot fully understand. As the section nears its end, the tone grows more introspective. Ancient geoglyphs remind us that meaning does not always lie in what we can clearly explain. Sometimes, mystery itself becomes the bridge between past and present, inviting us to stand quietly in the unknown. The geoglyphs stretch across the earth like long-forgotten sentences in a language we no longer speak, and yet somehow still feel. This gentle atmosphere leads into the next and final chapter. After exploring earth-written messages, monumental statues, vanished civilizations, and impossible artifacts, the narrative prepares to close by stepping back, inviting listeners to reflect on everything uncovered, everything questioned, and everything still hidden. The transition moves us toward a calm and thoughtful concluding reflection, where mystery becomes not just a puzzle, but a companion to understanding our place in history's vast tapestry.